Okay, I've got another video. I've tried to make some of these because I feel they're important, and I need feedback as well. Like how can I word it better and whatnot. Anyway, so the defeatist argument problem. I wanted to make a video on this because I feel it is one of the most important topics to discuss today. Because it seems to be more common to see defeatism nowadays, and breeds a type of toxicity that only comes with refusals to change. Because there is a lack of definitions, I'll go for the next closest thing. Definitions is defined by Cambridge Dictionary as a way of thinking or behaving that shows you have no hope and expect to fail. This also sounds similar to the appeal to futility fallacy, which again is really hard to find a definition for. But as the name implies, it's basically saying that every attempt at changing is futile, because nothing will change. That's basically what appeal to futility is. Here's where we get into the first issue with what I'll call defeatism here. But this also applies to appeal to futilities as well. Immediately expecting to fail is where you have the first issue. This is question begging. To my knowledge anyway. This is us asking why not try. To use a simple example, let's say you're trying to apparently score a field goal in basketball. That's what the term for a basketball goal is. Scoring a hoop, I call that. Let's call it a professional way, field goal. But you don't want to score the hoop because it's too high. You're not certain you can get a field goal. The flaw here is you've admitted defeat without any objective proof of it. Because without objective proof it will always be flawed. And it's because, and this is assuming you're an able-bodied person with some strength in your arms and no motor impairments, you should be able to get close to scoring, and even try. This means that trying is truly better than nothing, ignoring the obvious thing of having not tried before. I got lost in the script. What if I told you there's a more damning argument to keep on trying? Turning this slightly hypothetical, let's say you need a new car, and you can get a new car by scoring this hoop, getting a field goal, and you get say 100 tries to do it, and the hoop is like 20 feet above you. It's like higher than the average hoop anyway. You decide a new car because your current car is a pile of crap. Surely you'd want to try it because the end goal is desirable, right? It has a more positive outcome. The reason that hypothetical is specific is because this is similar to real life issues that we are trying to solve currently. Speaking personally, I was once an ex-ethical vegan. I've told the story a lot before, by the way. It goes like this. In 2016, I went vegan through Gary Yourofsky's The Most Important Speech You'll Ever Hear, which, interestingly enough, came from YouTube recommendations. Surprisingly, a lot of my influence has come from the old YouTube recommendations. They're terrible now because they're irrelevant, but they used to be good back then. Good enough. At the same time as going vegan, I met someone who became a big influence in my life, and knew them personally. So I thought they were smarter than me, and that's why they were a big influence. So naturally I believed whatever they said. Their reason for not going vegan was, and I quote, "Because going vegan won't change anything. Animals are still dying and they're already dead anyway." This is referring to how they're packaged in the market, supermarkets, or whatever. The argument convinced me to begin eating meat again, and it should be obvious why it's wrong. No objective evidence to prove nothing will change, and it failed to refute the obvious supply and demand issue. Because, supply and demand actually can prevent breeding of animals. But skip 4 years later, turns out the argument was dead wrong anyway, just objectively speaking. It was actually around 2018 and 2019 vegan food really began to flood stores and even reach fast food chains. So obviously change is happening. Less animals have to die now as vegan options. Corporations sadly follow the money, but this is the most effective way, one of the most effective ways of stopping animals from suffering and dying for consumption. Because money speaks, that's why it happens. As long as the demand for vegan products exists in bigger numbers, as more people become vegan, which is happening, there will end up being less animal agriculture, meaning less animals dying, suffering, being bred, exploited. This is to say that I was completely wrong to believe the argument nothing will change. Part of what I do here, for anyone wondering, is being honest and admitting to my mistakes and trying to put them right. I did that in January 2020 and went back to a vegan lifestyle, reflecting upon my mistakes and actually strengthening my current understanding of every topic. It's slightly confusing to those around me and a bit awkward, especially when I adjusted to a meat eater a few years back, and then vegetarian after meat got me ill, and now vegan again. But I'm a shut-in who never speaks to anyone, so I can't really say much to them without being anxious. I'm willing to be proven wrong on this because actually I am unbiased and open-minded. Something I've learnt about biases is that they can end up being more harmful than holding something loosely. I hold veganism loosely for that reason, because I'm willing to concede there may be something more harmful that we just haven't found yet. I'm just convinced by veganism because I wouldn't want to force animals into situations I wouldn't want myself or others to be put in, let alone do something that's not in the animal's best interest, where you could potentially harm them by doing something to them because there's a language barrier. It's better to be safe than sorry. The second issue is, why do you think nothing will change? It's a really good question to answer because it will show whether you're honest enough to admit you may be wrong or just don't know. In the vegan movement, for example, there's a group who unfortunately are sometimes pseudo-scientific but also really illogical and bad faith. And these people believe that plant-based capitalism is bad, which is basically saying you can't support corporations because they still support animal exploitation. I've asked Vegan Circle Jerk, the main proponents of this idea, for evidence that dropping plant-based capitalism is better for the animals overall, due to supply and demand of vegan products being the way to stop animal exploitation. And I got no response. Instead, I was banned from the subreddit. Yeah. But that's the issue with dishonesty as well. Because can you actually refute your own position? Because if you can, that's good. You have an active mind with enough understanding of what you're talking about. What this is to say is that I'm willing to accept things can change. I don't believe nothing will change as a result of anti-BBC, short for plant-based capitalism, because there may be evidence to support the important point of stopping animal exploitation, cruelty and death. I mean, the way to convince me is to prove anti-PPC is a more effective and faster solution of ending animal exploitation, cruelty and murder, which in turn is more ethical. That's what we're trying to prove, if it is more ethical. I know capitalism is bad, that's something we have to address after these other issues. However, since the situation is scary enough as it is, I don't know why I put a dot there, sorry. I've not given up fighting against it though, as that would be an ability futility without a justification, hence the second issue here. I guess point number 2.5 here, for lack of a better marking for this one. It extends from the previous issue, evidence. You need to have evidence to actually show that a certain thing is impossible, and likewise demonstrable. Back to the basket hoop example, if your first 10 throws don't go in, that's still not good evidence. If all your 100 throws don't go in, there is your evidence that you probably can't do it. But again, that's probably, and the other thing is, that's specific to you, not others. It's harder to justify with a wider range thing, but in general it comes down to methodology and calculating things. Now the third issue. Will you change nothing if you do it? There's a lack of holding yourself accountable nowadays, and I think this is one of the reasons why appeals to futility end up becoming more common. When you are doing something wrong, you are objectively doing something wrong. The only way forward from this point is to avoid doing as many or all wrong things possible. As far as practicable and possible, I should add. Doing it is doing harm. Because if something is wrong, that implies that harm is likely being done. It logically follows that we want to avoid that harm, unless the benefit is too strong to deny. Like with going, why did I write that? I proofread this, I swear. You as an individual don't do much in that point in time, but with more people going vegan, you will have an impact. Because you yourself are funding the abolition of animal exploitation, cruelty and death as a vegan, that's why it will have an impact. The more people who do it, the better. You are a small number, but you have made small change and small good change, which is better than doing nothing at all. On to another personal story, where I realised appeal to futility is dangerous. There is another area recently where I realised I'm wrong, and I'm currently in a really stressful situation where I may be suffering from bipolar disorder. Almost certainly, actually. And I may need to go and get medication for this, having failed antidepressants and anxiety meds before. Because of these side effects, I'm skeptical and I'm scared to try them again. If it's even the thing I'll get. That was until I heard an argument that reminded me of the issue with defeatism. A comment that told me I should keep trying medication until I find the right one. Because I was using a defeatist argument like that before, not wanted to try it because it didn't work, I realised I was wrong about it, because that is defeatism. And being consistent here, I don't believe defeatism is a good argument. If the overall positive outcome is that I can be happier and more satisfied despite a stressful situation and solve the bipolar disorder, then these side effects that come are pretty minor in comparison, then it's worth it. I should keep trying different medication until I find the right one. If it isn't hard to gather what the point I'm trying to make is, admitting failure before trying is where you always go wrong and can cause harm. But even then, in regards to a vegan lifestyle, let's say there is objective evidence it won't help the animals. What about the environment? What about health? There has to be something you can do. And the obvious point I didn't put here is governments won't do anything because the people aren't doing anything. There's not enough outcry. And change as well. You need to be the example. So I forgot to say, but what about the implications of exploiting, abusing and murdering animals through food choices? It's wrong if you wouldn't want to be in the animal situation yourself, or anyone you know. Which is to say, using and eating animals is wrong. Unnecessarily in cases where science says you can survive on plants and solve other problems with plants. If you're confused by what I mean by that, I can elaborate further, but it gets lengthy. To sum it up though, cruelty fundamentally has to happen in animal agriculture to get products efficiently. And this is written on official government sites as high welfare. when there's an option to do no cruelty, there's no reason not to pick the cruelty-free option. I've no doubt missed some things here, but I will answer questions if anyone has any. A simplified closing statement I could make here against defeatism and appeals to futility is simply dying trying is better than dying creating harm. And also to add to this, I remember something called the Starfish story. Kind of inspiring, but I think that's the point of it. It's trying to be inspiring, but it pretty much refutes the appeals to futility argument, which is saying that something is better than nothing. Basically about a boy who goes to the beach and some guy finds him doing this and asks why he's throwing these starfishes into the ocean. And the boy says that because they need to go back in the ocean, something like that. The guy asks why there's like hundreds of them, it won't make any difference. And the boy says, I made a difference to that one. Here's some extras anyway, you can click off the video if you want. And there's more examples of why, instead of looking at the positives of trying it, it's better than taking in the negatives of failing. You can click off, said that. So these are things from my knowledge and experience of recent, which I've realised. Exercise. I was very against exercise, not because I had any problem with it personally, but because I didn't want to do it. I had no motivation, and after a long week, a long anxiety attack, which lasted a week, I decided I needed to change my lifestyle up a bit. So I got exercising playing Ring Fit Adventure, which is alright. Not great. But also changed my diet and snacked on some really crappy low calorie popcorn I found whenever I had hunger urges. And well, the exercise pays off my sleep at least, and I've lost 4 kilograms since starting back in March 22. But it's the kind of thing where if you hold off from it using defeatist arguments, you're going to end up regretting not doing it later because you hadn't tried. And now I have tried, it's obviously good. And now I feel addicted to exercise. I have to have exercise in my life. I don't feel like not doing it. It actually pains me I can't do it every day because of like I think it's called training to failure. I could be wrong, but you basically can't train until you've pulled a muscle because the muscle will take a while to heal. Anyway, I'm someone who weighs 190 kilograms, out of shape, out of breath quickly, legs weak, arms heavy and arms spaghetti. Everything was pretty much in a bad state, even posture was bad, but when I started exercising I noticed everything sort of changed. I felt stronger, I felt more, I had more breath. There's nothing but positive outcomes from it. Next thing is calling a mental health helpline. I've done it twice now. The first time it was really crappy use as charity who doesn't actually give support, contrary to their website's description, but the second one I called was also somewhat useless as well. Basically I was in a dark place in my mind, which I call perfect despair. I used the objective point of there potentially being hope just by calling someone. I wanted to help cope with what I suspect is bipolar disorder, and well, I spent 40 minutes on the phone. Halfway through I got passed to someone else because I was considering self-harm. The only thing I took away from that is that maybe I do need to go and get medication for it. Maybe I just need to toughen up and sacrifice a few things, even though it's a few days of horrible side effects. But with that said, I'm going to attempt to get a diagnosis and then medication, because this issue can't go on any longer. The point there is that I used to not want to call them because of defeatism, and again realising it's a stupid argument and I need to be consistent and honest. I thought, no, I just need to call them. Can't keep ignoring it. The same can be said for suicide hotline, even though they're all pretty much scams. You need to try in the end because you don't know. Something might happen, something might not. It probably only takes like a few minutes out of your day. Mine takes longer because my issues are so complex. Well, that bit sums it up for the video. I would appreciate likes and shares and comments. I don't usually ask for it, and subscriptions. But I do kind of need them because I want to make a name for myself, not for my ego, but the things I say to do good activism and help people. That's pretty much what I've always wanted in life, because I've never been able to find happiness or satisfaction myself. I haven't given up trying, mind you, and that's the point of this video. I just haven't given up because I want to keep trying. I need to see it till the end for the positive outcome. But what I'm currently doing is finding happiness and satisfaction and trying to help people. We'll see if this did help and teach you something. That would be great. I would like to know. Yeah, I think that's it. I could put the script in the description, but everything I've said is just all the main points. And see you soon, I guess.